Welcome to RU Eagle Eye Podcast. Today I have Christian with me, Sierra, Sarah, and Nick. We'll be talking about the hard topic to talk about, date rape.
So, what is the main overall topic of what we're here to talk about?
Well, we're here to talk about sexual abuse on campus, I believe. And we're all gathered here today. I mean, as awkward and tough as a conversation that is, it needs to be had.
Right.
So,
just to get the information out there for people who might not have as much as a understanding of what it is or the scope of how problematic it really is.
All right. So what do you think are some things that we can do to help prevent that or help get the word out there about the situation, date rape?
well, literally before this podcast started, I just Googled sexual abuse in college, and I have a lot of numbers to call. I have all kinds of websites, that offer hotlines. There's different questionnaires. There are hundreds of resources on the internet alone just for it. But a lot of people, let's be honest here, a lot of people aren't just going to get on Google and go and tell someone they've never talked to in their life that they've been, sexually abused. Mm-hmm. So it really is a tricky situation, especially, on a campus like Reinhardt, like being so small.
Right.
And I realized when Dr. Wilson asked us to do this podcast, I realized I wasn't 100% sure of what the actual definition of date rape was, and I looked it up. And it's a form of acquaintance rape and dating violence. The two phrases are often used interchangeably, but date rape specifically refers to a rape in which there has been some sort of romantic or potentially sexual relationship between two parties. So it's where, like it is, you go on a date, you may or may not be actually interested in the person, but something still happens.
Right.
Where one person says no, and something still happens.
I feel like that's like the main point. Like people often don't foresee that no means no, and people still at that point will continue to force themselves on other people.
Well, people have a different opinion on what is right and wrong. 11% agreed that if a girl says no to sex, she usually really means yes. So not everyone knows exactly what they're thinking if they don't say anything. So they really need to tell them how they feel, because if they don't, they're just gonna be like, oh, they like this, or
right.
Oh, everything's going great. So how are they gonna know?
That's very true. And as a guy, I would like to just say that first one, that 11%, that is a very confusing statement.
Yeah.
When they say no, it means yes. Well, that's
you have
confusing.
To be clear
but
when,
yeah, you have to it's such a just rough topic. It's like you can't ignore any of this stuff. I mean, as confusing as that is.
I feel like body language is very important also, especially when we're talking about it on a date type of situation. I feel like obviously if you guys are having a great time, obviously that's great. But at the same time, if, whether it's a guy or a girl, if you are pursuing someone and you can tell that they're not really comfortable with, either you guys talking about a certain topic or if it's physical touching, anything like that. I personally feel like if they're backing away, or if they're shying away from you, then that should kind of give you some type of sign. So I feel like any type of situation like that, you should always be aware as to, your surroundings and what that person is feeling.
Mm-hmm. Especially if you go on a date and you're over 21, say you go to a bar or a restaurant and you order alcohol. There is a law that if a woman has even a little bit of any alcohol in her system, she legally cannot give you consent. Mm-hmm. So if you and someone are out on a date and you both are drinking, and then later she comes out and says that you raped her or sexually assaulted her, if she had alcohol, like I said, she legally cannot give you consent. So people who are on dates and they do go out and drink alcohol, they need to be extra careful to make sure that everything is consensual and everybody's okay with everything that's going on.
100%.
What do you consider to be consent for those that
Good
don't
question.
know?
Yes, a resound yes.
Yeah.
So not a yeah, maybe
any
probably
maybe
You
or
need to
kind
check
of.
in every
It
not
needs
even
to be
5
a
minutes.
definite
Every minute you
yes.
should check in. Is this okay? Is this okay?
Or anytime
Is
you
this
do
okay?
something new.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
It's not going to go into detail.
Yeah.
Right,
You know,
right.
the
Eagle Eye
stages.
podcast.
Yeah. But I know as a girl growing up, my mom taught me, and my dad both taught me ways to keep an eye out of everything going on around me. So especially at night, I have a pepper spray that I've never needed to use, but in the case that I have to, I have it. When I'm walking to my car from a store at night, I always call someone, like my mom, my dad, boyfriend, just to get somebody on the phone. So if something does happen to me, someone immediately knows.
Right.
Little things like that. No matter who the person is, if I'm out alone, I'm immediately conscious of everyone around me and everything happening. Is it the same for guys? Because I know a lot of girls, we grow up and be careful of everyone around you no matter what.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really think about it the same way, but after hearing you say that, it's like everybody needs to start listening to Sierra now. Like, we all need to be following that way of, life. I mean, because just that cautiousness and
For me,
keep you from
it's
what
more
happens.
like a personal type of situation, so it's more like an everyday, just people thing. So I'm always conscious about my surroundings. Like, that's like the number one thing I was, taught is be aware of your surroundings, because you don't know who's out there to get you.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I was talking to some people from other countries, and they were asking me why I had my pepper spray, because they're not used to that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I know me and my friend, we were watching. Like, he did not understand whatsoever of why I was so careful about who I was around, why I was so adamant about just being careful. And we watched the Ted Bundy documentaries together.
Oh.
And immediately after they were done, he was like, "You're right. I completely understand now." Like, he was against guns, but he's like, when you're old enough and you're ready to buy one, if you're comfortable buying one, I completely understand why. It's a completely different mindset.
Yeah, you don't really know anyone's intentions. You really don't.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's very hard to tell. I mean, there are some sick people out there that just like to prey on people.
So what do you think there are some things that we should do if we see it happening? Like, if we see signs of it happening in our friends, like it's about to happen?
Immediately go to somebody with authority, I would say. Like, maybe if they're close enough friend, you could like interrupt it, like just like stop it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, in the other situation, it'd probably be best to go to, higher up.
I'd also
authority,
try and
like-
talk to the person first.
Yeah.
Say, ask them how they're feeling about it. Because
Yeah, make sure
honestly,
they're
a lot
okay.
of people, they notice it, but they love the person, if they're in a relationship with them so much. They're like, "Oh, it's nothing. I agreed actually." Or if it is someone they don't know and they don't really comprehend or can understand that it actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
I feel
And
like a lot of times.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead. I feel like a lot of times that maybe people just aren't aware. Like, some people are just naturally touchy-feely, or some people that's just their
Yeah.
personality. So sometimes I feel like maybe they just aren't aware of what they're doing or the vibes that they're giving off.
I feel like in relationships, people will also use guilt to be like, "Oh, if you love me, you're gonna do this for me."
Right.
Yeah.
And they feel like, "Oh, if I don't do this, I'm not proving to them that I love them." So they feel like they have to do that to show
Maintain
their
a
affection.
relationship.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys think about women wearing sexy clothes? Are they asking to be raped? Because 40% say that if you wear, clothes that are revealing, that you're basically asking for someone to look at you or touch you.
I think they're just asking for someone to look at them, not as like I want somebody just to touch me. I think they're just looking for that attention, because women in our generation are starting to do that more often. But no, I don't think it's asking someone to just come touch me. I think it's just more of like an attention.
I feel like it's more of like a expression type thing. Like, I feel like everyone can express the way that they want to dress, how they want to feel, whatever. So I don't really feel like, oh, I'm asked for it, here I am, come take me type of situation. Like, I feel like, hey, if I want to wear this, I want to wear this.
Because I know personally, if I wear something a little more revealing, it's more of I'm confident in myself. I don't need any guy looking at me for me to feel whatever, feeling beautiful, pretty, sexy, whatever I'm going for. I don't need a guy to reinforce that. I'm going for me.
Right.
I'm not going, if anybody thinks I'm going for them, it's kind of stupid.
Right.
It's all for me.
Yeah.
Like, what are things people can do or to help people cope in those kind of situations? Like, if someone confides in you about something that happened to them, how are things that we can help them get through it?
Never make them feel like that they were in the wrong, ever. Always just be there for them, like as a shoulder to lean on, a friend to talk to, or anything like that. Just hear them out. You never want to tell them that they did was something wrong, or what they should do next time in a situation. Just let them know who they can talk to. Let them know that you're there for them, and that you're a friend that they can talk to.
Take the time to believe them. Like, actually empathize with them. Don't just be like, oh, could that happen? Okay, whatever. Like, don't just brush it off. Like, it's a very serious subject, and people suffer from trauma because of that.
Also, how do y'all feel about date rape drugs? Obviously, you don't feel good about them, but your thoughts on them?
Well, I know, like, there are legitimate, like, medical purposes for those drugs, you know, but it's just, like, I mean, date rape drugs, like, anything that can be used for that, I just think it's inappropriate, you know. It's, like, because there are legitimate reasons for the medicines that they're prescribed, like, people are using, like, either whether it be sleep problems or severe anxiety. But when you give it to the wrong person, then they can choose to do what they want to with it, and I mean, and that's a hard question, you know, because you don't know what people, like Christian said earlier, you don't know what people's true intentions are. So
I feel like anyone that's trying to take power over you, anyone that's trying to say, I'm going to do this specifically because I want this, you know, I feel like that should never, you know, be, I don't think anyone should have the power to do that. Specifically just to take advantage of someone, period.
Yeah, I think you should always, like, watch your surroundings, because mainly in parties it can happen. You won't be aware of your surroundings, and next thing you know, you turn your head and somebody drops something in your cup or something like that. Like, you just never know. You just always have to be careful. My mom always taught me, keep your cup around you when you go to a party or something like that. Be aware of people's intentions and
Right.
things.
And it's not
here.
to say don't have fun, of course. Like, have your fun, but again, just be mindful.
Yeah,
And
keep an
also
eye out.
be aware.
Try to avoid. I know personally, like earlier, my mom always taught me, if I put my cup down, it stays down. Don't drink out of it. Get a new
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Always keep an eye on it if you lose track of it, whether something happens. Also, if you're meeting someone new and they go get yourself the drink. Do not have them
Yeah.
bring it to
Yeah.
you. It's just little things like that. And then I read somewhere that the drugs that people can use are like antipsychotics, antidepressants, sleeping pills. It can be anything that can make the person unconscious or completely forget what happened that night. And that people could wake up and not even realize that anything had happened to them.
And, yeah, and that's just a terrifying thought, thinking, like, you wake up and you just have no clue it even happened. It's like, but like I said, I mean, there are some people who really do need those drugs, but then they're scary at the same time. They're just simply scary. All right, but I have a little statement for you guys to see how you guys feel about it. Over 7% said that it is acceptable for a boy to force a girl to have sex if she got the boy sexually excited. I know it's a tough question.
So, I don't know if I can say this, but it's something like blue balls or something? Like, guys sometimes, not even guys, but most of the time if it's guys, well, if they get, like, excited, they're like, oh, well, like, I'm gonna feel like it's gonna hurt down there if you don't go along with it. So, I feel like that's just an excuse to get a girl to sleep with them.
Yeah.
It really is. It
Definitely.
just,
Yeah.
you hear that, you just gotta just ignore it.
Because that does not. That's
not a
not
valid
an
statement.
excuse to
Yeah.
be like, hey, I have to do that, because you don't have to do
It's
that.
not
at
a
all.
valid excuse
I
at
feel like
all.
regardless of whether you're a guy or girl, like, you don't have to do anything for that person. Like, you are your own person. Only you can decide, hey, I'm going to do this.
Another question. Do y'all believe that dating apps like Tinder, Bumble, Grindr, all those, do you think those make it easier for people to be sexually assaulted and put people in situations for that to happen?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Do you think there's anything they can do to really help that and alleviate the situations?
The only problem is, I feel like sometimes with those apps, specifically like Tinder or Bumble, like regarding those apps, I feel like to a certain degree, like, you're kind of, in that regard, you're kind of asking for it, kind of, only because of the type of environment that those people are, you know,
That's
portraying
true.
themselves
That is
as.
true.
And there's also the situation of catfishing.
Right.
Yeah,
Because you
which
never
is-
know who's on the other end of that phone. Like,
Right.
You don't know who you're talking to. At the
And
end
a lot of people on there aren't necessarily searching for relationships. Some of it's just like, oh, I just want to do something quick and then call
Exactly.
it a day. Like, it's not
Exactly.
necessarily the first place you would go to search for a relationship, if that's what you're looking for.
I mean, it happens, but
It happens, but
it's an Tinder's definitely an unlikely app
right.
for that to happen, because it's most, I I haven't used it personally, but I know some of my friends, they're like, yeah, it's mainly just a hookup app, but they don't really do any of that kind of thing. It's just kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah.
That kind of, the social app culture is strange.
Yeah.
And so, though the majority of sexual assault victims are women, men are also victims. Rain recently had several members of its speakers brew on the Oprah show discussing male sexual assault and abuse. How else can this message be disseminated? Should it be a priority message? How can we make men more comfortable speaking out about their experiences with sexual violence or sexual assault?
That's a tough one. I mean, because as you know, growing up, we're taught to, you know, it's like, be a man.
Tough it out.
Yeah,
Right.
like tough it out. You know, you'll just walk it off. Like, so when it comes to this type of stuff, we're really not prepared, like, really in any way. So, I mean, if you're a guy and this has happened to you, I mean, you should definitely seek help. But I do understand, you know, this is.
Yeah, it could be hard for a guy to talk about.
It could be really
it
hard to
hurts
get a
your
guy.
masculinity
Yeah,
if you talk
exactly.
about that type of thing.
Could really
Right,
get, really
you're
be
deemed
difficult.
to be as weak or you know anything like that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because I know personally, when I was younger, I was like, there's no way a guy could be raped. Because I
Thought that
didn't
too.
quite understand that there's literally another side.
Yeah.
And it did not really click until I was older. And like when I was younger, I was like, there's no way, it's impossible. Like, how can that happen? And now that I'm older, I'm like, yeah, obviously it happens. It
goes both
fine.
ways.
I feel very stupid for thinking otherwise, but I, mean,
Oh,
I was
girls
young.
are raised to think that as well. You know, we're raised to think, you know, guys are scary and, you know, be careful around every single guy, but that's not true at all. And it's sad that the norms are that way.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that way.
And I know in 13 Reasons Why they highlight that. I didn't watch a lot of that show, but I know the one scene in season 3, I think it was, where that one guy went through that, and it was very hard for him to explain, and he almost went to a point of killing himself, but he went and talked about it, and he got better about it. But
Right.
I read a quote somewhere where this girl, she was drugged and raped, and she said, I'm falling apart every single day. I could never go back to the old me. Like, those kind of thoughts completely, like, just make me so upset, because I couldn't imagine feeling that way and having someone steal that from me.
It's
Yeah,
definitely
that's
a
just-
life-changing event.
It really is.
Definitely.
It really is crazy, and it's like a lot. It really is a lot to think about. Like, once we got the discussion started, it's like just
And it's hard to even think about it without being in a situation like that, receiving or doing it.
I feel like to those that don't know, who haven't experienced it, I feel like they should be a little bit more just respectful. I feel like a lot of it comes from like a mindset thing, like oh, like that's not a thing. Like women don't have to go through this. Da, 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 da. Like, well, if you haven't experienced it, then you wouldn't know.
Exactly.
So to those who like have a this closed, just terrible mindset, I just feel like personally they need to, you know, just be more open.
Yeah, because you never truly know about it until you've gone through it.
Exactly.
Like, you won't know someone else's experience until you've been through their shoes.
Right.
So you do have to be mindful about that. And, I mean, just watch what you say around people, because you don't know if that incident has happened to someone that you know. Because, I mean, you just never know. You just never know.
you don't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Most of the time, people don't admit to it because they're like, they're not going to believe me. So.
Because sometimes it's just his word against her word, or
He should, she should.
Yeah.
not even necessarily a boy and girl. Could have happened boy, girl, girl.
It's like with anyone.
It's just one person's word against another, and that's the worst kind of situation, because it's hard to prove that sometimes.
The biggest thing that hurts me is that I feel like we are getting like more women's side of the story, but I also still feel like it's like, oh, that happened such years ago. Like it doesn't matter anymore. It's irrelevant. If it happened, period.
And people grieve and comprehend and just deal with situations. Some people it can take a year. Some people it takes their whole lives to get over.
Right. And I do know that, I mean, some of those people, like, they do try to like manipulate people and thinking that it happened if it didn't. Like, there are some cases like that. However, I do feel like anyone that would go through this, I'm pretty sure wouldn't just make something up to say that, oh, this happened. Like, I'm pretty sure if someone is, you know, desperately like crying their eyes out, or you can tell that they're hurt, I would not think that they would just be faking it just for the heck of it.
Yeah.
I agree.
So to wrap this up, what do y'all think? Because statistically, it does happen more on college campuses, and Reinhardt is a college campus. So what are things that Reinhardt could do or do better, or that they are doing, that could statistically maybe bring those down?
I think coming up front about how you feel about the other person would really help. Not just like telling that person how you feel about them, but knowing your standings with that person, knowing like if you're having a date with that person, you should have a clear understanding of what you want to do, how you feel with that other person, and what your relationship's like. And I think that can really prevent a lot of situations from happening in the
And like
future.
we brought up earlier, if you are in the act, make sure every minute you're checking up on them. Is this okay? Is this okay? What am I doing? Is it okay?
Right.
Make sure that they are completely into it like you are.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to tell.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think this conversation was very productive. I know at first we were all a little hesitant about it, but I think, we all came together and did a good job. And got this out there, as hard as it may have been.
And I hope someone who needs to hear it hears it, maybe get some help, is able to cope better with their situation. But either way, we're getting the word out there about it, which on colleges around the world should be aware of, which I'm sure most are. But there's no harm in getting more information out there. And
don't be afraid to talk to somebody about it. If you need a helping hand, talk to a friend. We have a nurse on campus. We have a counselor on campus.
We also have the preacher, Jamie.
Exactly.
Also, don't be afraid. Like, don't let that guilt, take over you. Like, don't just let it be like, okay, I'm not going to talk about this because I'm going to feel guilty because this person made me feel like that.
Yeah, it's going to build up and just get worse and worse.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you're uncomfortable talking to somebody on campus, there is a national sexual assault hotline. The number is 1-800-656-4673 if anybody needs that.
Well, that concludes our talk. Thank you all for listening.
This is Nick Glowka.
And this is Sara Humphries.
I'm Christian Awong.
This is Kam Walters.
And I'm Sierra Ruetten.
And we're signing out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peace.